Hello and welcome to the InRetroSpect Show. I am your host, Samuel Turner. This is a monthly video game show, but I'm not on my own. No, I am joined by Mr. Peter Willington, the Professor of Pop. No, yeah, that's better, because you're not the Doctor of Pop, because he's got into a bit of trouble now, which he probably wouldn't talk about. So you're the Professor. Is that all right?
Just say yes.
I'll take that silence as yes. Also, not only is the Professor of Pop here, but the Doctor of Dance. It's Chris Darby, and with BA honours in something else, it's Daniel Frost.
Hang on a minute. Not only do I not get a specialty, I'm just a BA honours.
Hold on. Why am I the Professor of Pop?
Alliteration.
If nothing else.
Right.
That was like literally.
So where
like
does
being
BA
an
honours
actor's
come into
universal
it?
Challenge.
I was going in on. I don't know what else I could give you, Dan. To be honest, do you want a Masters?
I could have been a doctor as well.
No, you can't have two doctors.
Too many. You know what they say about too many doctors spoil the cough?
Colon.
Too many doctors solves the cough.
Do
Surely.
Well, okay, we'll make you a master of music, and there we go. We've got the whole band is together. So hello and welcome to the InRetroSpect Show, shambly starting. We start as we mean to go on. Coming up on this month's edition, we're going to be playing the free game Too Many Ninjas, brought to you by Foddy.net. We're also going to be bringing you the update on the video game that we're making, which is going to be called just in time for Christmas, probably.
Because it will be.
Because it will be. It's our Willy Wombat, really. It is. It's what's going to happen.
Sorry.
Good game, bad name. And that's the tagline.
yeah. That's how we'll
How
pitch
did you
it.
come up with them?
And what else are we doing on this show? We'll also be talking about our experiences in real life gaming. We all went to Bristol and went to a puzzle room and solved it. Spoilers. And we also, three-quarters of us played Magic: The Gathering as well recently. So we'll be talking a little bit like that. But hark! Hear the doves fly, hear the crows doth caw, and the bells doth ring for Chris's gaming news. Bong!
University gives gaming a sporting chance.
Bong!
3 dimensions makes us angry.
Bong!
Final Fantasy brick shithouse.
Oh my god. Bong!
Control P Doom.
Right, okay. I think
Chris!
Right, I think I know what the last story's about, which is interesting.
I don't think I know what any of them are.
I don't know what the first three are like, but right. Final Fantasy brick shit house. Go on,
That
Chris.
doesn't even work as a sentence.
I know it doesn't.
No.
No,
So okay,
I've taken my lead from the Daily Mail School of Headline Writing.
That's wise.
This is, believe it or not, this is another example.
Are there immigrants living in there? Is that what you mean?
What is this sick filth? Aerith gets killed halfway through.
Ebola in Britain in Final Fantasy brick shit house.
Is Phoenix Down the answer to cancer?
Princess Diana loves Final Fantasy. Oh no, that's the Express, isn't it? Sorry.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Sorry.
This is another example of, a rare example, in fact, of a Minecraft player having too much time on their hands. And they've spent the last 2 years recreating Final Fantasy VII's Midgar in the world of Minecraft.
So what's a brick shit house got to do with it? Can
I
you
just
build
wanted
men
to-
out of shit in Minecraft?
I just wanted to I thought this would be a good time to give an outing to that phrase, but also to kind of Talk about what that means, a brick shit house. A house of shit. A house of shit bricks.
Well, if you say someone's built like a brick shithouse,
Yeah.
I'm imagining a brick toilet.
but doesn't that mean like they're really like tough,
Stacked.
strong?
I'm fairly confident it's because toilets used to be outside and they used to be made of wood, but when they were made of brick, they were quite short and sturdy and stocky, and that is the term that you use for people who are short and sturdy and stocky.
Check you out using your logic.
Wow.
I know. Yeah,
I don't think
not funny.
I
but-
was thinking about the smell not
accurate.
getting out. And it
something
just
like
being
that.
smelly.
Smell
But,
not getting out.
So hold on, they've recreated Midgar.
Yep. 2 years spent doing that.
2 years.
Yeah. Hang on. Here we go. I've got a comment from the maker, the creator, the architect, Killer X20.
Oh yeah, Killer X20. Go on.
As a lot are probably wondering, yes, more than 85% of this build was indeed hand placed. The only things that were not are the outer plates, tower, and reactors. But that doesn't mean they were completed when imported. They were basically detailless, empty shells, and I wanted it that way, so everything on inside them had to be hand placed for optimal detail. Now, I'm not an aficionado of Minecraft, but
No.
so when he says hand placed, what does he mean?
So what he means is that there's a creative. Well, there's two modes in Minecraft: creative and survival. Creative allows you to use any material within the game itself to create whatever structure you like. What that means is that there are sort of two modes within that creative mode, whereby I believe you can use just a zoomed out standard kind of a creation view, I suppose, where you're just using your mouse and you're zooming in and out, and you're placing things as you might do in a strategy game, for example. Whereas I believe what he's referring to is actually going into the game in first person and placing them as a character that inhabits the world itself. So it's actually like for every block that you're going to place, it would probably be about 3 or 4 times faster to just use a mouse in this other mode. But yeah, so
what would be the point in...
Yeah, can you
Doing
prove that?
well-
Can you
well-
prove that he did it though?
I don't think so. But ultimately, it sort of doesn't matter, does it?
Can I
Either
just
way,
ask him?
he's built
Because
whole
as
city.
Yeah.
as Chris said, similarly to Chris, I'm not an aficionado of the world of the craft of mine.
Right.
I've never played it. I've not really been involved in any of it, really. So I don't really understand the game, other than the fact that I know people create stuff. Without straying too closely to the question that annoys most gamers when non-gamers ask them, what's the point?
Yeah.
In the game of Minecraft,
Yeah.
what is the point of spending 2 years building a massive structure?
It's virtual Lego. What's the
Yeah,
point
it's
of
Lego.
building something out of Lego?
Oh yeah,
But that's what I'm saying. Is it just a case of
Yeah.
the reason you do it is to accomplish it, or
the-
do you get something in return for creating something big?
the enjoyment is in the construction, and potentially the enjoyment is, whenever something massive like this comes about, whenever somebody's made something huge in Minecraft, it usually makes a pretty decent headline, that some of the more enthusiast blogs tend to pick up on, and you get
better
known.
headlines than Chris wrote anyway.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that was a pretty good one.
Really?
So not really. I was being nice. So, yeah, I think it's mostly that. I think it's mostly for the joy of creation of it. If you're playing survival, though, then the point is to survive, and it becomes way more gamey, and it's really enjoyable. Really good in survival, actually.
So it reminds me of like when Stephen Fry talked about he loved a book so much that he actually physically typed it out himself on a typewriter. There's something about the process, not necessarily the end product, the process of building.
Yeah, what book was it? Was it a short book?
Hungry Caterpillar.
Was it like Mr.
It
Man?
was a book. I think it was P.G. Wodehouse. I might be lying. It was P.G. Wodehouse, not book. I think it was that. But he just loved that book so much that he just wanted. It wasn't enough to read it. It was the act of typing it. You're almost recreating. You're almost like enveloping yourself in the process of the making of something it's so intrinsically bound up with your own life. This person has obviously found affinity with Midgard, and he wants to kind of reverse engineer it and discover that process for themselves.
The weird thing about it, though, is that you can't actually go and see that much of Midgar in Final Fantasy VII. So he's kind of taking the shots of it, I guess, from the CGI stuff. And
now Square Enix are rubbing their hands going, we could get people to do this for free!
oh, free marketing of Final Fantasy VII.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So some of the other headlines we had, Chris. So Control P Doom, I believe that's a story about the fact that you can print out a level in Doom. Now, what were the other ones?
That little headline guess you made was actually a little bit inaccurate. I didn't know that. University gives gaming a sporting chance. 3 Dimensions makes us angry. And Control P Doom.
So Control P Doom, I don't know what that. I don't know what that's about. Is that somebody with a bladder problem that died?
Who knows? No,
You deserve that silence. That was just there.
That was a good joke.
What's
Actually,
Control
thank
P
you.
Doom about?
Right. Listen round. Basically, to show how lax security is on certain bits of hardware, there's a guy called Michael Jordan, not the basketball player.
Yeah.
Not him. Or maybe it is him.
It could be. Let's not rule it out.
Yeah.
That was actually really wrong for me and remiss for me to actually just assume it wasn't the basketball player that we saw in Space Jam and in the Chicago Bulls.
Exactly. He's played basketball with Bugs Bunny. He can do anything.
So, Michael, if you're listening, I do apologise for that. Basically, this guy, Michael Jordan, maybe he's the basketball player, maybe not, has basically hacked the Canon Pixma printer hardware to basically have, you can play Doom on a printer, the screen on the printer.
Right.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
He's actually hacked the actual interface of it, because obviously Doom, when it was first made in 1993, isn't that big now by today's standards. So a Canon Pixma printer has enough power to play that game essentially.
Do you think
on the
we're
screen.
going to see a lot more of this kind of stuff? You know, like having games of old on devices that they should never have been on. Like, do you think in like 10 to 15 years' time we'll be playing Metal Gear Solid 3 on a smartphone or
Calculator.
on a calculator? Yeah, like a scientific calculator.
As technology increases in power, the possibility of doing those things will absolutely, that'll be open to people to do. The question is whether or not that platform will actually be an interesting and useful way of playing that game. So you can play Doom on a printer. I'd argue it's probably not a very good experience, in the same way that you can play games on a smartwatch, but they're probably not going to be hardcore console game experiences because it's slightly too small. But yeah, I mean, power gets, what is it, like, what's the phrase, like computing power gets exponentially more powerful every 5 years or something like that.
Probably something like that. Yeah,
Sounds about right. But it's quite funny that the actual resolution of the printer matched that of the original Doom. It wasn't like they were downgrading it. It was the exact same.
I just find it quite odd that, I work in an office, so I use printers all day, and not once have I pressed print and thought, you know what I'd like to do right now? Play Doom.
Bit of Doom, yeah.
That's I can honestly say that has never entered my mind.
Yeah, it's a bit pointless, really, isn't it?
Dan, well, tomorrow's going to be very exciting for you, Dan, because not only tomorrow are you going to be embarking on your building in Minecraft, but you will be trying to
I'll be wishing I could play Doom
2 on your HP printer at work.
I'll tell you what, we have such an awful time printing at work. Like,
what?
You can put it as having more than one copy at a time. You don't have to.
What do you mean?
You don't have to press print for every copy. You can.
Yeah, I know, but just finding a printer, network printers. See the energy.
Sam, we work in the same place. There are printers everywhere.
Yeah, the energy that guy's put into making a printable, playable version of Doom. Could he not just put that energy into making sure printers work every time, anytime? His talents are wasted.
Well, he does a very good 3-point shot, apparently.
Is he a printer engineer? Is he one of these people who's supposed to fix it and just there's broken printers everywhere because he spent all of his time on one printer making Doom?
It's like the scientists who spend all their time finding out if ducks' quacks echo. And you're thinking...
Yeah. Do you know, they for once and for all, they disproved that.
Yeah.
Like, there was some university and some guy spent 3 years of his course just disproving it.
I'm sure
disproving a whole bunch of different
methods. That can't be that difficult. Surely you take a duck to a tunnel, and then it's solved. Why you spend years?
I'm not familiar with you. I'm not hot on my euphemisms.
Spent any time with a duck?
Duck in a
They
tunnel.
don't perform on cue.
Well, they
I
do,
found out
but
that-
in gangs.
I found, yeah, exactly. Like I was watching because obviously it's become increasingly more public knowledge that all duck males are rapists and all duck females are rape
They have a
victims
corkscrew penis.
because of their
Kind
corkscrew penis.
Because of the corkscrew penis. And not wanting to bring up penises for the second show in a row.
Right,
We're just putting it out there.
right.
Literally.
What yeah.
Yeah.
So I
We don't
I
want
watched
this to become a feature.
Here's the thing, right? The other day, I started watching the DuckTales movie, and I thought to myself,
That was the first film I saw at the cinema.
yeah, it was my first film at the cinema as well.
I thought your
But
first one was Mr. Nanny.
Huey,
No, it's the
Dewey,
first
and
one I took my
Louie,
dad
or whatever
to.
they're called. Like
Huey, Louie,
hanging
and
out
Louie.
with that,
Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
hanging out with that little pink one. I just think, oh, she's in for a rough time when she's older.
I'm never going to look at Donald Duck the same way.
Or that duck on the top of the barge in Rosie and Jim.
yeah, yeah,
There's only one of that, so...
yeah.
He hasn't got
it's all
legs.
So, alas, that ends Chris's gaming news. If you want to know the other two stories that Chris declined to share with us, or we declined to let Chris share with us, then you just have to figure them out on your own, really. I know some people that get angry because they're just like, oh, I really want to know what that story was like. Well,
You can ask him on Twitter.
yeah, these are the rules of Chris's gaming news. Hit him up at Digital Strider. Chris,
Just
though...
pepper him with abuse.
Yeah, I would.
You do?
Chris, I do. Chris, you have got another. Have you got another feature for us? Something you want to bring in? After the
This is a
success
dumb idea.
of the,
This is a stupid idea.
after the success of the inches tall American football guy.
Yeah. So last
Okay,
month
so
we were talking about our glitches, and I thought this month I'd try and pilot glitch of the month.
All right. Do you want me to make a jingle for you?
Yeah, do you want to do that, Sam?
Right. Okay. Here's a jingle for glitch of the month. All right. Here we go. It's Chris's of the month.
Okay, so gentlemen,
Sorry, that made me laugh. I thought
Two
that was
words.
Quite clever.
2 words. Face scan.
Right.
NBA 2K15, apparently it's getting rave reviews, but there's one problem with it. It's the face scanning technology, where essentially they try and take your face, Gungadin. They take a photo. So I'm not. At the moment, we've got webcams
I've used
now.
this technology.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they take a
it
photo.
worked
And
quite
how
well with
successful has it been, Dan?
Dan's
The
is
actual
really good.
technology works, it just doesn't put it in the game.
Yeah, because at the moment it just looks like a fire at Madame Tussauds. Basically, there's like already a Tumblr. There's a huge kind of hashtag for these kind of fails and what they look like, but essentially, it gets the salient points of the face, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and it just does whatever it wants to do with them
Right.
on the
Right.
digital
Well,
body.
so put some in
kinda
different
like-
sta-
you're- you're
put
kinda
some in different
mashed.
positions. I'll tell you what, Chris. Other than being not really a glitch, this has reminded me of something I did see the other day. I was in Asda, right?
Oh
And
God.
now in Asda, you can make a 3D model of yourself. You go into a booth, you get scanned, and then 21 days later, you go into the store and you get presented with like a 3-4 inch high doll, basically, of you that you can give to your loved ones or like have standing
No.
there or anything like that.
That can't be real.
Yeah.
In Asda, and
Absolutely
Asda,
real.
of all, Asda is the
How much is
piloting.
I don't know how much.
Organisation.
Dan, don't.
How much is that?
Excuse me, I have
But
a
if it's
shot to
Asda,
find.
if it's Asda, I imagine there's some poor soul who's sat behind whittling it down, watching the person and just hand carving it all, like that
21
guy in
days.
Minecraft.
And I was with my girlfriend at the time, and she immediately just went, "No, don't think, stop."
See, the thing is, though, Christmas is coming up,
I know.
right? And I've
What
got,
perfect
I've got
present.
what a lovely present
Well,
for somebody.
My birthday's coming up. So I just put that in there. Although, to be honest, you're going to have to get me to somehow walk into Asda in your company, aren't you, really?
Well, no,
Surely we
'cause-
could walk in with a picture of your face.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, with this face scan technology, that sounds a little bit more sophisticated, Dan, to be honest, if you did it that way.
That's true.
Or you've got that hot water bottle I bought Pete.
So what happens if in this like this NBA 2K, whatever it is, what happens if you put a different kind of image in there instead? What happens if you don't scan your face? What happens, for example, if you scan your butt?
I don't know. It's a very.
Like, just for example.
You're just trying as usual. Pete,
Just
Pete.
as a random example.
As
I'm
usual,
asking for a friend.
I don't know. As usual, Pete, you're chiming with the thought of the entire internet.
Well, I can actually probably help with that, as I've used the face scan technology.
On your butt.
What happens? Yeah, what happens when you put your
First
butt in?
thing he did. Thing he did. He takes the shrink wrap off. He pops it in the Xbox, and then he just takes his
Trousers down.
Yeah.
It's not even got face scanning technology.
Every year I do this.
This is just Connect. No, you have the picture, and then you select on the picture, and you match up. You tell the computer where your eyes are on the picture, and then it
there's
maps
only
it
one
to
eye
that.
in my photo.
Pardon?
So, yeah. Well,
If you want to be
sounds...
a Cyclops, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah. All right.
One
big
little
cheeks.
brown eye. Fantastic.
Let's quickly move on.
So Chris's Inch of the Month may or may not be returning next month. We'll see.
That was good.
We'll see what happens.
That was a good idea, Chris.
If you like Glick of the month, then please get in touch and let us know.
Or
Let us know your favourite glitches.
Or like many bugs, it might be found out, deleted, and corrected. Anyway, onwards with the show. This is a part of the show, just before we talk about our game that we're making, that we like to talk about free games that you can play for absolutely nothing. And this month, on Free Play, we're playing Too Many Ninjas. Hello and welcome to Free Play. As usual, that music heralds in this time where we're talking about games that you can play for nothing. Foddy.net is providing us with Too Many Ninjas this month, which quite simply is a arrow-controlled video game where you have to protect yourself from a onslaught of ninjas. Is that correct description, Chris?
Yes, it is, Sam. Actually, it's the most apt description you could have for this game. Essentially,
you play
it is
small pixelated ninja.
Yeah,
With a
and
sword.
that's it. And you have to deflect ninja Death Stars and ninjas flying over you and things. But I'm right in saying you can't move from your spot.
No, you
That's
can't
right.
move. So you're a static ninja, and you just have to defend yourself from. You're probably
Too
doomed
many ninjas.
from too many ninjas. People may know, or people may be familiar with Foddy, having provided other games like Get on Top or Quat and GURP. So it's a game in that similar vein. Chris, what did you think?
I like this to some extent. I think it's a very easy game to pick up, very easy game to take to. It feels it's got a very nice arcadey feel. It's entirely through the keyboard keys. You only need to use your arrows essentially, so it's not very labor intensive. There's not a lot you need to hold into your head. It's just timing, really. Like the best and most classic of all games, it's all a question of timing.
Timing and judgment. Were you any good?
Yeah.
I was shite.
Because it's more than just timing, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
it's not simply a case of like a Bomani arrow repeat after me kind of thing. It's not like, you're pressing up because something is coming from above you, and it will always come from above you in exactly that way. You'll have ninjas that are jumping over your head and like throwing down a ninja star and all that good stuff. But people will come from different angles and they'll try different attacks on you. So it's not just a case of this rinse and repeat kind of gameplay. It does change things up quite a bit. So you do have to make this kind of judgment call of when you should block and when you shouldn't be blocking and where you should be blocking.
Of course, this is another browser-based experience. You very much change to the desk upon which you are on. So Dan, would you have preferred this on maybe your iOS device of choice rather than being stuck to a desktop?
I hadn't really thought about it actually in terms of an iOS kind of a platform. But thinking about it, I think it would actually work much better in that kind of environment. I was really looking forward to this because we've played on a previous kind of free play episode. We played both QWOP and GURP, and the things that I liked about them there were the interesting control schemes that they put in with QWOP. You were a runner who had to control each limb of the legs individually, and then with GURP you had to climb a rock face by pressing certain keys, and it kind of created a kind of a twister type kind of contortion of fingers across the keyboard. Things that I really liked. So when I came into this, I was really looking forward to it, and it didn't seem to do anything exciting. And I struggled definitely with the timing, and I didn't get very far at all.
Did you just find the gameplay a bit repetitive?
Yeah, and I think
that it wasn't challenging.
I think it was obviously challenging because I was terrible at it. So if it wasn't challenging, I'd have been really good.
But I mean, like challenging as in like, because obviously
I didn't want to get better at it though.
Okay, so I think what I mean is not like challenging as in the gameplay was difficult, but maybe like whereas QWOP and GURP, you're like, oh, there's a hurdle to overcome in terms of how do I physically move the character. Whereas Too Many Ninjas, it's very, very clear that that's the control scheme. I can move my sword left, right, or diagonally left or diagonally right. So do you think that lack of challenge is what you didn't like in terms of the control scheme was there, the gameplay was pretty simple, and that was it?
I think probably that's coming from my experience with the previous games of QWOP and GURP. That was what I loved about those other games, was that challenge. It was a left field challenge that you don't get with a normal game. It wasn't just difficult. It was okay, I have to almost teach myself a new skill in order to accomplish this game. Whereas this one, it was difficult in terms of timing and getting it right. And as I say, I was terrible at it. But it was just the fact that I was bad at it. I didn't feel like I was actually gaining anything from it. It was a basic game, but just difficult.
There's plenty of things that are like it out there.
Which we couldn't have said about some of their other titles.
Yeah, certainly. I think I agree with you mostly. In fact, probably in general, because there are a lot of games that are out there that are very similar. And I think the only thing it's really got going for it is its style and its kind of its theme, this ninja-y theme. Chris, if you were to improve it anyway, how would you improve it?
It's a very good question, Sam. Well, first thing for me is I would actually make the title a question.
What, like, is there not enough ninjas?
Too many ninjas?
How many is too many?
I think that would be enough to pique my interest, I think. And I think
a question mark?
Yeah.
So you're saying, skipping ahead to a couple of items ahead on the show, so you're saying our game should be called Just in Time for Christmas?
Yeah, I think that upward inflection, Sam, that you just did there.
Sold.
Yeah, I think they would actually...
BioShock?
Yeah.
Infinite?
Selling 1 million more copies. Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, genuinely think adding a question mark to the title of your game will lift it.
Do you seriously think that just an air of intrigue would have made you like this game more?
Yeah, because I like the idea that obviously it's a play on words because it's infinite. There's infinite amount of ninjas that are coming at you, essentially, and you do feel as the game progresses and it gets harder and harder, you do get overwhelmed with it. So it's kind of a nice ironic thing that kind of gives it a sense of humour. Because at the moment I can't. It doesn't have an emotional resonance with me. I'm not saying that all games.
It's an arcade game, Chris. It doesn't need to have an emotional resonance with you.
Pete,
oh, you shook a chord there, Chris.
Oh.
Pete, calm down.
Oh no!
Calm down,
I wonder what happens to his children.
Down, Pete. Just
it's an arcade game.
Just because you've turned 29.
Yeah, I'm not putting up with any. I'm not putting up with any poop now.
Take a chill pill.
And
put things
Peter
into
Willington,
perspective.
does anyone play games on their desktop anymore? As in flash games like this?
Yeah, loads and loads. Browser games still make loads and loads of money. Facebook games less so, but they used to make a huge chunk of money. Facebook games, and they are technically browser games as well. But yeah, places like Congregate are still absolutely kicking it, and Newgrounds and all of these other sort of flash portals. They're still absolutely raking in the cash. And in fact, people are now I was speaking with somebody at a games convention who was like a money guy, and he bored with the shit out of me. But mostly, I took away from the conversation that he said that there were people who actually made in-app purchases in browser games. Can you imagine that?
What? What? You mean
Yeah.
like the banner ads at the bottom?
No. I mean, like, so say, for example, we were playing... you remember when we were playing Wonder Putt
Oh, yeah.
back in the day?
Buy a set of golf clubs.
Yeah,
Wonder
buy a set of
Putt?
gold clubs, it'll cost you this amount of money, and it'll be actual money. And people pay it.
I say to me that's not insane. I mean, obviously it's a bit insane. That's not overly insane because there's not really a difference. For example, perfect example with Wonder Putt. Wonder Putt on desktop is the same as Wonder Putt on iOS. If they had in-app purchases on the iOS, you wouldn't think that was strange. So it's just a different platform. It's exactly the same kind of title, just different platform. So
I agree,
that doesn't
but
surprise me.
I feel like there's a sense of ownership on mobile that there isn't on desktop when you're sort of playing something in a browser. I don't know. I think you guys are being a bit too harsh on Too Many Ninjas. I think like it's a really well made, arcade oriented.
I just think I've
action
seen enough.
game.
I just think I've seen enough.
So is it that you've? I don't know. I mean, like, didn't you find that there was some sort of nuance to the controls? Didn't you find that there was?
I mean, the challenge is fine,
Mm-hmm.
but my problem is with browser-based gaming is what's keeping me there. What's keeping me sat in my chair in my empty, cavernous dining room, sat at my desk, playing this game when there are 1,000 other things I need to do.
Because you are at
sat my
home,
desktop
you
when I'm at
could be
home
playing.
and, and is this it? Is this the thing that's keeping me here?
So I was playing this in like 5-10 minute bursts over my lunch breaks. I would boot this one up. I'd have my food. I'd have a little bit of food, and then I'd have a little bit of a drink of Walter, and then I'd load up.
But the
I'd
thing
load
is,
up
Pete,
Too Many Ninjas
you
and
work
play
from
that for 5-10
home.
minutes.
Like I couldn't boot this up in my lunch break
Why not?
because I work in a corporation. Whereas, if I was seen, even if I was on my lunch break, to be seen to be playing it or be engaging in any activity would be frowned upon.
Just get it on your printer.
Yeah.
I told you before, Chris. The printers don't even work. They not be playing Doom.
I can't even print out this spreadsheet, let alone go knee deep in the dead. I don't know. Okay, yeah. So I suppose that I'm in a slightly different situation.
You are. You're in a position where, for you, these games provide the distraction that you need. And I'm sure for thousands of people who have office-based jobs that are probably a bit more lenient, and the computers are hiding away from the job from the boss. These games are a godsend. But for me, desktop gaming doesn't have much of an importance in my life.
A question, Pete. I mean, obviously, as we said, you work from home, so you're on the computer all day anyway. So that's kind of your occasion. So obviously, I don't quite know how you choose to work. But say in the evening,
naked.
That was the question I was asking.
No, I'm naked.
Okay.
Always naked.
Always assume as I can see right now. But
look at this. Look.
Yeah. Okay. You don't need to don't wave it around. At the end of your theoretical work day. Okay, you have...
No, hold on. It is a work day. Let's not call it a theoretical.
You mean
it's not?
No. What I mean is because obviously you're because I don't know.
Just doesn't do anything, does he?
It's a backhanded compliment.
You know what I mean. Your work day. Obviously, you'll be more flexible because of you working from home. So whenever you choose to finish your work day, you will then kind of draw an end to that and then kind of relax for the evening.
Yeah.
During that evening time, would you ever feel compelled to go and sit at your desktop and play Too Many Ninjas?
No, absolutely
exactly.
Not.
So we're
That's
in the position where we would have to play in our own special time, social time. In our own special time, we would have to kind of take ourselves away to sit at a desk and play Too Many Ninjas, which is probably why our reaction is different to yours, because ours is this is taking up my social time as opposed to you. That's your kind of your lunch break, as you said you're using it. So that's time when you're just chilled out. You're still in work mode, but you're relaxed a bit.
So this is perhaps a great example of video games and needing and finding an importance in the context in which they're played. You know, like I feel like actually, if we were talking about the mobile version of this, if there was a mobile version of this, I reckon you guys would be way more positive about it.
Probably.
I think, as I said when Sam suggested it, I said I hadn't thought of it on that platform, but I think it would work much better. And I'd be much more inclined to, if I'm sitting on the sofa, take my phone out and I can play a quick game of it there, and I can kind of track and see how I'm doing, whereas opposed to taking myself away and sitting at my desk.
So, Too Many Ninjas then, slightly too simple for desktops and hasn't found a home on mobile yet.
The problem with Too Many Ninjas is it's just Too Many Ninjas.
Did anyone have a look at any of the videos
Are
online?
there?
Did anyone see any videos online of Too Many Ninjas? Because you've got people who've got high scores, and I think the high score I saw was someone who got 193.
Jeez.
And when you get to the end of the video, and the amount of ninjas that are flying in is like, this is just ridiculous. I didn't get past about 4 before I was like,
That's awful,
like this
Dan.
is just
That is
crazy.
terrible.
No, that is bad.
I told you I did badly.
Well, if you want to experience Too Many Ninjas, foddy.net, foddy with a Y, not a D-I-E, .net. Next month we will be playing the game Super Hot.
We'll be playing the prototype.
The prototype. It's an FPS game, which stands for First Person Shooter, where time only moves when you move. We're playing the prototype. It's currently on Kickstarter. Is that right, Peter Willington?
Yep. I think it's just completed its Kickstarter funding, but you can play the game.
So we'll be playing the prototype, which will be interesting considering we're making our own game. At the end of the show, I'll tell you where you can get a hold of Super Hot.
That's the reason we picked it, because of the name.
Yeah, I mean, the name seems a bit strange to me, really.
Oh, you guys are in for a treat.
All right, does it explain the name?
No. No.
A different kind
Is
of
it
treat.
super hot?
I think it sort of does. We'll talk about it on the next one.
All right, okay.
And what I think the title means.
All right, okay. Well, we'll find out.
I can't wait.
Later on. So we are making our own game, but we all took a break from making our own game recently. It was Peter's birthday, and you had a wonderful time. We all came round to Bristol, and this was kind of on the back of last month's show. I don't know if you remember, where I talked about my own experiences doing some puzzle rooms, an escape room in Manchester, which is called Breakout. And basically, to quickly explain the concept, you and up to 5 friends are locked in a room. You're given some clues, and basically you have to find out a way to escape. So it was based on this that we signed you up, Pete, didn't we? And all 4 of us went to Bristol Puzzlair in Bristol.
Mm-hmm.
Puzzlair. The real 4D escape game. Puzzlair.co.uk if you want to find out more. What do you guys think? We did the Lev Pastid room.
Mm-hmm.
I can give you the synopsis of this. It's a secret hideout and laboratory of the mysterious Romanian geneticist and biologist. In his late years, he focuses experiments on some kind of blood elixir. The formula is gone, so is the doctor. Some say that secret blood serum is still hidden inside his lab somewhere. You and your team have 60 minutes to solve the puzzles, find the hidden items, search for the codes, and get out of the room in time. That's the puzzle that we did. What did you guys think? Peter, it was your birthday. What do you think of your present?
21 again, eh?
Yeah.
Eh?
21 plus 8.
Yeah. So, I really, really loved it.
What did you expect first? What did you expect?
Well, I expected something a little bit shit. I must admit. Like, I thought that the idea of going into a room in some slightly dodgy end of Bristol, that a man had arranged in a certain way, and we'd have to get out, and he locked the door behind us. Like, I just thought, this is a recipe for disaster.
Well, because we went in there, and like we walked downstairs to what obviously is the basement, and then you just like kind of, well, hang on,
shut the door behind us. Like, hold on, we might be murdered. But no, it was really good, and because I thought it was going to have a bit of the like amateur dramatics quality to it.
So did you
I
think
thought it was
going to be actors?
Pirates in Penzance.
I thought there was going to be somebody, but I thought there was going to be somebody in the room somewhere. I thought, like, you know, in a sort of that bloke from the Crystal Maze kind of style, that level of campy. Oh, I don't know if, but like the puzzle is over here, or because that was a great impression of that guy.
It was uncanny.
It was, but the puzzles are really well thought out. Like the actual, you had to root around each level, and they were all sort of level. You had to sort of rummage around each room, and each room had lots of different puzzles within them. But when you walk in, the first thing you think is there's nothing in here. Yeah. Like there's maybe a book. Let's look through this. Oh, there's not really a lot in here. And then gradually, once you found, and I think we discussed this before, like once you found the first clue, suddenly everything starts to like unravel.
Yeah.
You know, like you immediately start going, oh right, okay, well I could put this into this number, you know, this lock, this clearly means this, and everything just starts to unfurl. I really liked it, even though I was a bit rubbish at it. Like I didn't feel like I was the sharpest knife in the drawer, I must admit. Okay.
Chris, it was your first. Well, it was all of your first times doing one. I've done 3 now. I did another one in Manchester the other day, which was a lab escape, which was great fun. Which was the first one I did, which was a dual exit system. So I had to solve 2 bits. You had to find an antidote to a puzzle and the code to actually get out of the room. So it was a little bit tougher. So I'm pretty much addicted to them now. Chris, what were your expectations, and were they met by the puzzle room?
They were indeed met, actually. I didn't realise how euphoric I would feel upon hearing the door open and us exiting with 4 minutes to spare. It was really funny, actually. Like, if someone like transcribed our conversation or recorded it, it would sound like we were just online, like playing multiplayer games, like just what we were saying to her. Okay, I've got the code. Where are you? I'm over here. That
Stop
kind of thing.
Out the light.
And how we kind of like rotated who was doing what. We all, I think, there was some brilliant red herrings in there, like the bike helmet, which we made. I think Dan or Pete put on, even though we looked inside it. We thought if he wore it, he'd see something.
It smelled.
And what I did like as well, that I wasn't expecting, in fact, was how it's kind of like what Naughty Dog used to do to ensure that the games were not too difficult for players. They'd kind of tailor-make the difficulty level as you're going throughout. So we never, if we were genuinely stuck on something, we'd get a little hint on the screen above us. So we never got frustrated too much by the puzzle. We felt intellectually stimulated by it, but it didn't feel too hard. It was just challenging enough for us. What also made me laugh was we kind of nearly fell at the final hurdle because the guy who ran it admitted that he was colourblind, which was crucial considering one of the last codes involved us getting the right colours in the right order.
Colours in a row. Dan, you were probably the person I was most worried about when introducing to a thing like this, because you don't take well to change.
I don't.
And or new experiences in general. So for you, like, what did you expect? Did you think did you just think, this is just one of Sam's flights of fancy?
Well, I think part of me thought this is one of Sam's flights of fancy. However, I also kind of took what you said, how you described it, and kind of what I was expecting was pretty much what I got, because what I expected was kind of what you had told me. So I kind of knew I was expecting what I got. However, I was super excited. Having heard about it, it sounded brilliant. And I wasn't let down because it was brilliant. And there were moments in it when suddenly you think of something and all it is in your mind, certain things fall into place, and suddenly you've made a connection. You're like, hang on a minute, this means this.
Yeah.
I think there was one point right at the end when we had to put some codes in an order, and we couldn't figure out. I was thinking in my mind, there must be a way of doing this, and suddenly I realised a picture in the other room we hadn't used yet. So I ran in there. I was like, yes, this matches up. So then there was me in one room shouting instructions to you guys, and we were like, this, and it was brilliant. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. But it was exactly as I expected. But I don't mean that in any kind of bad way, because I loved it, and I was super excited to begin with, and it lived up to expectations.
It is great, and I think do you guys think in any way that, because obviously the whole element of gaming rooms was popular when we were kids, and things like the Crystal Maze and Nightmare, which essentially Finders Keepers. Was essentially like that puzzle room.
Finders Keeper's not quite the same.
It is the same. It is the same.
It's kind of
you got to find things
stuff
quickly.
Funhouse.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like, the popularity of video gaming and that kind of patterns of thinking has caused these things to take off because we're a bit more familiar with, or indeed exposed more to that kind of way of puzzle solving in environments and situations and based on stories and narratives?
I think that's absolutely the case. I think because there are, for example, I think we kind of discussed this thing last month when you mentioned kind of that you'd done Puzzle Room. The game, The Room, is a perfect example, which is just kind of teaching you, and you learn to do puzzles, and the puzzle leads into something else, which leads into something else, and it's just like this series of puzzles which kind of all feed into each other. And there is a kind of an understanding now kind of amongst gamers of how those kind of mechanics work. And so I think for me as a gamer, the next step is to kind of want to do more of that, but kind of even more so. And when you can actually physically be moving around, it's like when with all stuff with Oculus Rift and virtual reality, people want to be more immersed in the game. People want to be acting out the game. They don't want to just be holding a controller and moving stuff around. So the same thing. So we were in this room and we were having to pick up desks, pick up chairs, look up the top on the ceiling, stand on chairs, all this stuff. We had to physically do this, and it was fantastic. And I think that's exactly the reason why.
Isn't this just an extension of the murder mystery, though?
Well, no, because a murder mystery is kind of a murder mystery is. It's not really puzzle based. It's because when I think of puzzles, I think of codes and lateral thinking. Whereas a murder mystery is
it's a process of elimination.
Well, it's a process of elimination. It's Cluedo basically. There's not always a sense of logic with a murder mystery, as far as I understand it. Someone's made the murderer by random, and it's up to circumstances like acting and role play and all that kind of stuff as whether you find out who the murderer is. And essentially the murderer is in control of the situation, whereas a puzzle has a fixed yes or no answer.
But it's a game in a live space using dramatics.
Well, it's not really dramatics. I didn't feel
there
like
are definitely similarities.
I think the main difference is that in a puzzle room you're locked within the puzzle,
right?
Whereas a murder mystery, the end game is, the murderer gets away with it, whereas here you're part of the puzzle, you're inside it.
Yeah,
and also like it's an example of a pervasive game, but also murder mysteries, you're kind of given a role to play, a character, whereas in this I didn't feel as if I was part of the narrative. I wasn't necessarily trying. Although you had kind of like really, really interesting kind of props, they were trying to sketching in this character, this mythical doctor who had left all this stuff behind. I didn't like cast myself in the role of some kind of espionage spy or research assistant trying to find the clues. It was just
I did.
Four blokes.
Yeah,
I totally did.
Did you? That's really interesting, considering I'm the one that's the drama teacher.
So I think I was with you, Chris. I think I focused more on the actual puzzles than kind of the story behind it. And I was kind of just focusing on those, so going from A to B to C to D. So I wasn't, I think similarly like you, kind of getting involved at that level on the narrative side.
My different experience of doing a few puzzle rooms now is that when I did the ones in Manchester, they had a bit more of a conscientious focus to give you a role. So, for example, I did one. The most recent one I did was a lab escape game, and they said before I went in that the world is there's a virus pandemic currently sweeping the globe. 5 scientists managed to find an antivirus, but by testing it on themselves, they died when they found the solution. So you're in this lab now, and you've been locked in, and you need to find the virus within 60 minutes in order to get out. And in the other one I did, they were like, which was a detective who had found a killer, but the killer had come back, killed him, and we were in the room and the cops were after us. So we were like investigators. So there was more of a kind of a situation within the world outside the puzzle room. And I think that makes a lot of difference. There's those little touches to the situation. But of course, gentlemen, it wasn't the only real-life gaming that we did that brilliant weekend. I also introduced a few of you to Magic the Gathering. Well, all of you except Dan. Because
you introduced me to it.
I introduced you to it.
I just wasn't fussed.
Well,
No.
Sam, we met at Manchester Piccadilly, and
We
we said hello to each other, and straight away it was like Sam opened his bags and he just pulled out his magic boxes.
We had 3 hours to kill. How fast did that hour go, Chris?
It flew by Samwise. I just marvelled at how he managed to balance these different stacks of cards on Virgin Train tables, essentially.
Little Virgin Train tables. So for those of you who played it, what did you... Magic's pretty cool, right, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's the world's most popular collectible card game for a reason, I suppose. What I like about it is how it's an extremely basic game, like a really simple set of rules. And like, if you were to play with the most simple cards with no special rules or whatever, no flavor text, it's a really, really, really straightforward game. What I really love about it is the different stuff that it does. So, simple kind of, you've got a certain number of health points, your opponent's got a certain number of health points, and you have a deck of cards, a hand of cards, and you whittle away your opponent's health by fielding creatures. That's a simple enough premise. But when you've got flavor text that sort of says, okay, now on this turn, you can do this, this, and this. If you have this amount of mana, which is like magic points, stuff like that, and you can bring in when this creature enters the field, you can bring in these 2 other creatures as well. Fantastic. There's a lot of strategy to it. It's good. Like I really liked it. Dangerous game though. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to. I'm still on the fence about it. Like, I've got a couple of decks and stuff like that because I was just kind of given them. But I don't really want to invest because I know that I will get deep.
Mm-hmm. I think what I realised, we started playing Dota 2 the other day, and I think playing that, what it made me realise is that I'm a lot better equipped now to handle a game like Dota 2, because I think games like Dota and most probably sort of MMORPGs work in a similar way to Magic does, in the terms of you've got things like hit points, you've got a mana cost, things have a mana cost to cast, and you have access to items and consumables that change the rules of which the games are governed by.
Yes.
And I think that's one place where I feel like playing Magic has kind of made me a better gamer, in a way. Dan, you don't need to say anything because you didn't play it.
I think I have input to make.
Go on.
Is the input? I'm a great big curmudgeon.
Right, okay. Before you say your input,
All right.
I just want to make the listener aware that you did not play the game.
No.
There we go.
No?
Go.
I'm not going to make any claims that I did.
Physically play the game. Go on.
No, I
What do
didn't.
you want to say about it?
Well, as much as you may not think it, I didn't have any predisposed opinions towards Magic. My experience is that I've not played kind of card-based games like that, physical card-based games like that before. I have played games video games like Hearthstone, stuff like that. So, which is follows similar rules. It's obviously just in a different format, and they didn't really work for me. I didn't enjoy them. I didn't really get into it. That could have been because I was trying to learn by myself, as opposed to, I think with Chris, you obviously had Sam helping you. And although I didn't play,
I was there to help. I was there to help. I was there physically.
I'm not
there.
finished.
I think the problem is Dan is. Okay,
I'm not finished. And although I wasn't playing, I was sat kind of with you whilst you're playing, watching how you're playing. And for me, just personally, I had nothing against the game. There was just too many things going on for me to really understand what was going on. When it started getting to the point where you were saying, no, you can't use that card because that card's in exile, and you can't use that one because that one's in prison, and that one's expired. I was thinking, what is going on? Just when I thought I got to grips with the rules, something else showed up and says, oh no, that's all wrong. And that's why I didn't say, oh, me next, because I was thinking, I don't need this kind of stress.
But then it's all about exposure,
Dan, I think you were taking it too seriously, Dan.
I think that, yeah.
Stress.
I think, I think, but the thing is, Dan, is you're thinking, you're letting it get ahead of you because you're not.
I want to understand all of it all at once.
It's like, but you're not. You're not going to be able to. It's like sitting someone down and trying to explain the rules of American football, and then go, I'm not going to understand it, so I'm not going to play. Or whenever your mum sits down and tries to and asks you, what's happening or how to play a video game, and you're like, oh right, so. So try and explain to your mum how to play FIFA, right? So X is pass and circle is shoot. Fine, fair enough. Oh, but
that was a hell of a Sunday afternoon, wasn't it, Sam?
Yeah, it was. So how do I run? Oh, that you press R2. Oh, right. And crossing? Well, that's square. Right, through balls, that's triangle. So suddenly the rules have gone from just 2-button passes to suddenly 5 or 6, 8 or 9 buttons.
And also, like that pass button is only pass when you've got the ball.
Yeah. So suddenly.
I think you're overestimating my mum's interest in FIFA.
So, but what I'm saying is, Dan, is that like it's all about letting yourself and willing yourself to be exposed to these things. Because the more you sit on the sidelines and go, "That looks complicated. I'm never going to get the hang of it." The only way to play it is to pick up the cards and learn. One day,
I get that. However, the other side of it is, I will miss that one and pick something else up. I did the puzzle room. That was new.
I think ultimately, Dan, Magic is a game about change, and you're not
exactly
to play
a
that
game that constantly changes for a man who hates change.
Yeah. I like things to stay exactly the same.
But Dan, to quote the Greek philosopher Heraclitus, you cannot bathe in the same river twice.
You can.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can.
No, you can't.
I think you find that the
come then, we'll go to the Thames. I'll show you.
Yeah, but the water you bathed in last is no longer there anymore.
All right, I see what he means. I see what you're getting at.
As if I run down the river.
Philosophers, what do they know?
Dicks.
Dan, are you thinking like me, Dan, that Magic would be vastly improved if it had a question mark at the end of the title?
I am. Magic?
Amazing.
Brilliant. So one day we'll get Dan to play a game with all of us face to face. Talking of games, we're trying to make our own game here on the InRetroSpect Show. We've only really got about a month and a bit left to make it. So let's bring you up to date with what we're doing. The title of the game so far is called Just in Time for Christmas.
With a question mark.
It's a
working title.
Working title. It's a
with the tagline: "Good game, bad name."
It's a first-person exploration game where your character has snow blindness, therefore cannot see, and has to try and make it home just in time for Christmas. And you're being guided only by sound alone. So lots of things have happened in the previous month. Probably the biggest thing to happen is that we have cast one of our characters, the biggest role that we had, which was the character of the old man. Pete, you were heading up this challenge, so tell us through how you went about finding the old man.
Yeah, sure. Finding the old man. Sure thing. So basically, I, as long-time listeners will know, I dabble a little bit in voice acting myself. And one of the places that I found quite a lot of work was a place called Voice Acting Alliance. So I logged into my previous account on Voice Acting Alliance, and I posted a job request, essentially, saying, hello, this is who we are. We're looking to cast this character, and we're interested in hearing multiple voices, read these lines out. So let us know if you're interested. So we got a lot of really good responses, actually. Well, I say that we got a lot of responses. We got 2 or 3 really good responses. Yeah. So obviously, not naming names, with the exception of the person who actually got it.
Hang on one second. I think in the rules of transparency, I think our listeners can we share the audition pieces with our listeners?
I don't know if we can, actually.
All right.
Can you try and recreate them yourself?
Well, if we get their permission, surely we can.
Can we share the actual guy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we can absolutely share.
Well, as long as we get permission.
Game.
As long as we get permission, we can put them on the podcast.
Dear unsuccessful applicant, is it okay if we use your thing to show people how you failed to get this role? Yeah, sure.
Well, no, because you can just say they were shortlisted.
No.
Can we show prospective voiceover casting agents how you're not good at said role?
Yeah. No, I don't.
Okay,
think
well,
that they
so
would be. But I can describe to you why some of them weren't right.
Okay then. So we had a short list of 5. We will share with you the winner. I mean, it's not X Factor, is it?
No.
The person we cast.
The guy the guy we thought better encapsulated the old man. So, and I think this is quite interesting because this show that listening to these guys do the audition sort of showed a lot to me about the world of voice acting, which is there's a lot of people out there just trying their hand at it, just going, here's a role. Let's just have a go. Is that what you say, Pete?
And I think that that's absolutely really commendable. Yeah. I'm definitely of the opinion that if you're interested in that kind of thing, you should just go for it, figure it, And clearly we got some responses that were from people who hadn't done a lot of stuff before. They were just kind of finding their feet, finding out their playing range, that kind of stuff. And I've actually found that a lot of voice actors don't come from a traditional acting background, so they don't have that kind of discipline of maybe I shouldn't go for that role because it's not really me. So we got some responses, for example, that were quite clearly,
people our age or younger.
People our age, or actually, younger, like you say, who were trying to play men who are, as I put on the post, a man who's about 60 years old. And it just didn't work, and that was either simply because they weren't talented enough to have that old man voice tone, or their voice just it literally physically their vocal cords weren't right for it. So we got a few like that, and then we got a couple that I would say were really, really good, that were clearly people who'd been at this for a while and totally understood where we were going. And then in the end we were kind of between 2 people, and the one that didn't get it was simply just that, I mean, I really liked the performance. It was there was a slight bit of comedy to it, but I almost feel like the group's consensus was that I really liked the comedy that he brought, but it just kind of wasn't right for the role, and it almost just feels like the person who got it, just got it. They understood that this was an old dude, and he wasn't joking around. He was genuinely, there is some humour to the lines that we've written, obviously, but there isn't laugh out. It's not laugh out loud. So anyway, the guy who got it in the end is a chap by the name of Jesse Lowther.
It's Lowther, isn't it?
Jesse Lowther?
Yeah.
Lowther?
I think it's
Lowther?
Lowther. That's
Lowther?
how I read it.
Jesse Lowther? Well, we'll have to, at some point,
Oh, I
I'm
have
sure
to
we'll
get that right.
We'll have to get him on at some point, and say, Jesse, how do you say your name, mate? But he seems a really interesting guy. Like I've had a little bit of an email back and forth with him, and seems really keen. Seemed really keen with the audition. And then when he got the role, he was like, "Yeah, awesome." And so now the process is we've got most of the audio. We're just going to finish off the audio because obviously that first bit of text isn't massive. There is one or two other roles that we need to cast for that, but they're kind of minor. And I was kind of thinking that actually, because it's a party environment that the player is going to end up at, I was kind of thinking that it would be a fun thing for us to do.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Should we? Before we go on, should we share some of Jesse's performance with?
Oh, go on then. Let's pop a little bit
So
of Jesse in
we'll
here.
we'll have a little listen. So this is by no means the final cut, but to be honest, it's a pretty damn good audition for the role of the old man in our game. This is Jesse. This is Jesse.
It's Jesse L.
Jesse L.
Are you all right there? Excuse me. I said, are you all right there? You look dazed. Everything's gone white? What do you mean? Oh, I see. That sounds like you're suffering from snow blindness. Too long out there in the powder, no doubt. Sorry, this must be a little worrying. Well, not to worry. Take a seat by me and wait it out. It'll pass.
Ah, wonderful. Wonderful, Jesse. Jesse.
So you're Terry Wogan.
I made him sound a bit like Terry Wogan.
He hasn't done a Welsh version.
Audio.
So
Snow blindness.
I bet he's glad he's involved with our project now. So this is the character of Phineas that we've cast for. He's got that thing, and now the process is just going to be getting a few tweaks out of him, like figuring out, giving him a little bit more background information on the character and what we want to do, and letting him kind of run wild with it. And just getting the tone exactly right. So, because obviously this is the audio that everybody is going to hear. This is the one thing that absolutely everybody is going to do when they boot up the game. So it's got to be right. But no, I'm really pleased with how that's going. So my side of things, the audio side of things, is basically done now. I now just have to start thinking about PR and marketing for it once we've finished it. So I'm kind of there. Like,
good.
What else do we need?
So the next bit of sort of rapid development has been the excellent work done by Daniel Frost. So we decided quite sort of midway through the project that we didn't want it to be a completely blind experience. My sort of I was certainly nervous because I'd seen games and people trying to play games similar to this in this similar sort of style where you were made completely blind. You literally had no sort of visual stimulus whatsoever. So Dan's been making some, I would call them Christmas card vistas, to go along with each square, shall we say, that the protagonist will venture through. So, Dan, without revealing all your secrets, how have you been making these incredible images? They are brilliant. They do look.
I mean, that's it. In the interest of transparency, I kind of gave you the images, a selection of the images that I've done kind of last week, and now we haven't actually spoken about them. So, is anything? How do people feel about them? Is everyone happy with the way they look, or do they?
I think just to describe them to the listener, I think the best way to describe them is Christmas card images. I mean, they are like, there's one which has a forest in the background, a path, and an old man sitting on a bench, but it has this sort of washed out white, sort of blue etched look to it. So it's like an image which is almost fogged, but has this eerie definition to it, which means that you can just, by looking at it long enough, you're just able to make out all these tiny little details and a sort of direction that you've got to go, which I think is what we wanted to have from
exactly. That was the aim that I was going for. It was obviously I wanted to be almost completely kind of solid white, so you couldn't see, but you should be able to see behind that almost an outline, but kind of a bit more detail. Like that. The way I did it, I mean, I kind of used both Photoshop and Adobe After Effects. I took kind of different assets of different parts of a scene. So, for example, our opening scene has an old man in it. There is a path, there are some bushes, there is some forest in the background. And then what it is took those kind of 2D flat assets and then put them into a 3D environment in After Effects. So I could then maneuver them and kind of change the perspective of them, creating a 3D kind of image. I then took that back into Photoshop and then overlaid a number of different like kind of fog textures to add to all of those. And then just kind of little tweaks and little adjustments. And then kind of some of the shading, so kind of fading in some of the edges so that they weren't kind of stark edges, so everything kind of flows. There's nothing that really stands out unless it means to. For example, in one image there's a wall, so obviously that is going to stand out because it's a straight line at the top, so there's no kind of fading there. But then what I did was I kind of looked at a perspective of what's in front of you, how far in front would you be able to see, how much to the, what would you see to the side. So on one of them there's a river, so I'm trying to use similar images, so in theory it all feels like one cohesive journey. So when you see the river at one point, if you go along one square, you're roughly seeing the same river, but the picture's slightly different because you're further up the river. But it's not a completely different river, so otherwise that'd be jarring. So the idea I tried to do was to make everything very kind of cohesive going all the way along, and then kind of just utilising kind of skills on Photoshop to extend them. Like I created a bridge on one bit because I needed a bridge, so using kind of a wall. So that's kind of how I did it. But I'm glad you like them. I'm glad I'm on the right track.
The images, I think, will be obviously like they will be the standout bit of the game, because it will be what people look to progress within it. And if the images aren't what they are, if they're not substantial, and if they don't give enough away, but also hide sort of what we want to do and embellish the narrative, as it were, then they wouldn't work. But I think they do a perfect job of that. So the next bit of the game that we've got to do is sort of my bit, which is the overall sound design of it. So in front of me at the moment, I've got what is our map of the game, which is made up of 25 squares. And within each square is basically going to be its own sound design of where sounds are coming from to help you as a player navigate your way through. So I've started this process of basically trying to capture sound effects and editing them in a way so that different sounds are coming from different directions. But what I needed to ask you guys first, before I went any further with the stuff I'd done already, is in terms of movement from square to square, is a player always facing north? Is this what we decided?
Well, this is yeah. So this is what I thought we decided this.
But when you say facing north, because the player isn't, you're not looking top down at the player. The scenery itself is always facing north, but the player will, depending on what side they enter from, will be pointing in the direction they're walking towards. So essentially, if I come in from the left of the screen, I'll be pointing right. But in terms of what Dan's done, in terms of Dan's pictures, that will be facing north. So in terms of doing your sound design if on a basic level it's the left stereo, the right stereo, always keep it's kind of fixed in that respect. So you are right in that sense that it is pointing in one direction.
It means that, do I do 4 tracks for one space and therefore increase your workload by 4?
One track. Well, that's all. Well, it's not my workload. It's what the software we've chosen can do, that AGS can do, because we talked about the possibility of not just having the sounds Sam puts in, like the track that the overarching track, but like if our character encounters an object in the space, we can have certain sounds that are triggered within it. But you can only have so many sounds at once playing, because so many channels essentially for sound. So
one thing
we can only have 25 sounds.
One thing I would say, just as kind of just on top of that, was you wouldn't necessarily need 4 audio files per space. I found that when I was working out the map in terms of the actual visuals I'd have to do, my view was that in theory 4 visuals per space. However, that was affected by there are certain kind of perspectives that just aren't going to exist because the player cannot come in from that direction. So, for example, on the left-hand side of the map, there is a river. So the player physically cannot come in from that side. So that kind of perspective doesn't exist. The player physically can't get to it. So in the same way that I wouldn't do a visual for that, you wouldn't have to do a sound file. I think when I worked it out, it's around 60 altogether. For the 25 squares, 60 files altogether. Obviously, that's still a large number if we're kind of going down this road. So I'm not saying that that's simple, and obviously I'm assuming that that's not a major issue for AGS, because obviously in my mind it was 1 visual and 1 audio file per per viewpoint, basically. So on the map that I've created, I've got arrows to kind of decipher in terms of perspective. So in theory, for each arrow, there's a visual and an audio file. That's how I've worked it out. That's how I'm thinking about it. If I'm going in the wrong direction, if I've missed something, please tell me.
I think the best way to think of it is like it's a snakes and ladders board, where essentially you can approach any square from any direction unless there are geographical features that block you from doing that, i.e. like a river. But they're kind of fixed. It doesn't matter where you approach from. You arrive at the same square, same picture.
So say for example, I'm looking at the map now.
Yeah.
So there's one square which has the river on. So say for example, it's got the river on my right, and it's got the church on my left. Now, if I enter that square from any angle, are we saying that we always make sure that
the river's on the right? Because you're not necessarily thinking of the player. Sorry, you're not thinking of the character, what they hear. You're thinking of what the player hears. If you get my drift, so the player could.
No, I don't think that is right.
I was in the impression that the point of where you enter the square will determine the visual and the audio that you hear.
Right. So this was an issue that came up. This was an issue that came up last month, and I wasn't 100% sure it was completely resolved. So we have to decide whether or not each square has 1 image attached to it, or if each square has multiple images attached to it, depending on which way you come in from.
No, I think each square has 1 image attached to it,
and therefore 1 audio file.
Yes, because
you can't do multiple images and 1 audio file, because that'll be
with
awful.
the time limit we've got. We can't do that. It's going to be too dense. And also, as I said like a couple of months ago, you can change the programming so you don't necessarily have to access every square from every angle. You can make it like it is a maze. So you may be able only to enter 1 square from 2 possible directions, or 3, or even 1, which will probably be the final place they get to, the ending bit. Okay. So you can kind of pick and choose where the dead ends are, like a maze, if you get my drift. And we did talk about making it into like 3 sections. So I can make it so you can enter a square. So say if I was in square 3 and I wanted to enter square 4, I could do the programming so I could enter square 4, but I couldn't go back to square 3. So we talked about kind of like Escape the Room, the game we literally did in real life. Instead of the player running around thinking, where am I going, we've kind of made that choice for them. We've made it a little bit easier for them.
So there's nothing in the script. There's nothing. This is a pure exploration game. There's nothing in the script that actually cuts off somebody's access.
Yeah.
Theoretically, you can go back to square 1
at the moment. But we can't change the script, which is great. We shouldn't, because we can't. You said this to us, Gunged In. But what we can do is we could, for example, when you enter a space, you can kind of know that you can't go back because you may hear the sound of, I don't know, an avalanche or rocks falling or something to indicate that you can't go back, or a tree falling over.
So just so we can confirm this, so when you're moving around this map, theoretically you're always facing north. So for every square, you can take 1 step forward, 1 step to your left, 1 step to your right, or 1 step backwards. So
Yeah.
in theory, I know
It's
Pathfinder
like
map.
Nightmare. Think of it like Nightmare.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking of.
But also, you're not taking one step because you're taking steps within each square because your avatar is a tiny little sprite that's in the square. It's not like each square.
Whoa!
Yeah, but
No.
but to a player, that's not that's a non-entity.
Yeah, because the sprite doesn't exist.
Right. Okay.
Like
yeah,
to
that's
the
what I
player,
mean.
like,
Okay.
because it's all technically in
This
first.
brings me to my next question. So when I gave you that test though, where you had the sprite moving around, and because you can trace out the path. So Dan's given us these beautiful images. I can trace a path on Dan's path, so the character would never leave that path. But if the sprite's invisible and it's just a case of click right to go right, click down to go down, that makes it a very quick playing experience, which is something we're fine with, but it makes less work for me because I don't have to worry about where the sprite's moving, where it enters or exits, that kind of thing. So it can. So you're saying you can almost go click, you're in the next room, click, you're in
Well,
the
I think
next
if we're doing
yeah,
the
yeah.
visuals of just if we're doing the visuals and audios of one for each one, I think that's how you have to do it. You can't do it any other way. My only concern is there are certain times when you have to maneuver around, say, some bushes or a wall or something like that. And physically what you would have to do is you take a step forward, take a step to the left, and then backwards. And that is an odd movement.
Well, we just say at the start of the game that you are always facing north.
So the only issue with that is that there are times when you need to move south, and
You're not going to see where you're going.
Well,
There's
well,
gonna be
if
nothing-
mind you, that I guess that is the point.
Well, if we're not
seeing
worrying
them
about
anyway.
the sprite and movement and that, and it's a click thing, we could do because we're obviously our map we put it in a grid because it's easier for us to imagine in our heads as being a grid. But really, that grid could exist in any order because I could have a character leaving at square 1 and appear in square 9. They're not connected physically on our grid, but all I need to do is change the code, and it could be like a wormhole that will take them there. So we don't necessarily have to worry about. So Dan, in terms of them, it may be if we're going to go with this idea that instead of having one per square, and making it instead, it depends where you enter from. Instead of thinking of it then as a grid, we think of it as just a line, or a series with a series of branches of possible options, and that would make my life a lot easier. And we number it that way. So when I'm programming this, I don't cock up and get the player tied up and not knowing where it is. This is another benefit for us having visuals, because if we just said we're keeping it snow blindness, I wouldn't be able to tell which room I was in. If you get my
So
drift.
does this mean that we have to change the map then?
No, we don't have to change the map. We just need to change out how the map's outlined. So imagine we've got the map as in squares. We can just reshuffle where we put those squares, so it makes my life a lot easier in terms of programming. Because we're looking at possible. Because
I'm getting a little bit confused in terms of the.
Yeah, I'm
right.
getting
Okay, listen
massively
around.
confused.
All right. Do we give? Have we got? Is it a labyrinth? There's only one way to the centre. There's only one possible route they can go, or is it a maze where there's multiple ways? Because if it's
there are ultimately multiple ways.
Right. So do you care whether we have to change a visual depending on which way they enter a square from?
I would argue that if we don't, then we will have to explain to the player every time that before they play the game, you are always facing north, even if you walk east. Right? And in the player's mind, that isn't going to work.
Why not?
Like, if I move east, I'm not immediately thinking I move sideways. I'm thinking I'm moving forward.
Right. But you can see how tricky this is going to be for me to program if we've got it as a grid, and each square in that grid has got 4 images attached to it, and I have to try and find a way to code that and categorize that and not confuse the system. That's why I'm saying trying to put that in this, trying to arrange the map in a means, if we're going to go with that is as less confusing as possible for me, really.
I don't know why we can't just do the whole look north thing.
Yeah, why not? It wouldn't confuse me, because Dan has given us visuals where I can clearly see this isn't a first-person shooting. I'm not turning on the spot.
So how do you tell that something is behind you?
That's the only issue I have with the looking north.
I don't think that's a problem because it's not like it's the same principle to when you're
playing.
playing.
Game, you'll go.
Yeah, it's like Pokemon. I don't go what's behind me in Pokemon. I just go down and it shows me what was behind me.
But the kind of thing, if there's a wall behind me, how do I know that I can't go backwards?
Well,
because I won't leave the room. I won't leave the square. I'll just stay there.
So on that bit of our maze where there's a river in front of you and you have to go backwards, you try to go forwards. There's a river. All right, can't go forwards. You go left, can't go that way. There's a river. Back to the other square. Well, I go down.
But we're not going to have any kind of notification to the user that they can't move that way. It's just going to be a case of that button's not going to work.
Yeah, that button's not going to work. Because otherwise they're going to get pretty annoyed because there's going to be lots of times where it's just going to go, eh. It's like Lara going, no.
No.
Lara Croft, no.
I think it's just a limitation that we have to go through. Obviously, if we had more time, then we could say, yeah, why not? Let's, have a player who's moving in a 360-degree plane. Yeah. But the thing is, with the limitations of time, resources, ability, and sort of, just the logic of working that all out.
Yeah.
Of what's going to be in the space when you move into it. We've got to work with the limitations that we've got.
Exactly.
And changing the map now is ridiculous.
I'd say stay north. We keep Dan's given us these beautiful images. And
I need to redo a load of them now then.
Do you?
Yeah, because a lot of them are facing different ways. There's only, of the ones I've given you, there's only a couple that are facing north. That's okay.
That's all right then, but at least now we're clear on the brief, and I can get the audio done.
Yeah.
Can we?
I know I'm on the right path with the actual what the images look like. So
can we not give Jesse a line, like, or the important thing with snow blindness is that you always face the sun, even though the sun doesn't rise, the sun doesn't go north. So
unless it's midday.
It's midday. Well, no, if it's midday, then the sun's directly south.
Well, he could just say something like, "The way you're facing now, always face that. It's that direction. Keep facing that way."
Okay.
Or something like. Obviously, I hand over to Pete's extraordinary writing abilities to make that sound old manish, like Phineas would say. But I think we could write something for him to say, advising you.
And in the gameplay notes, you just write, "Snow blindness is an adventure game. Please consider that you're always facing north and could move."
Yeah. Okay. So we solve it by addressing the limitations within the game itself.
Yeah, and that's a criticism of the game, how we've designed it, and it's just one of those things that we've fallen in. This is just one of those traps that we've fallen into as game designers. Has gone. Yeah. Right, we realise there's a problem with. Essentially, it's a problem with how we've designed the game. Is we thought, a grid system, that's easy, but not realise that there's a grid within the grid.
But we said this. We said, great idea. Next game, let's save the elaborate grid for just in time for Easter.
Oh God. Yeah, all right.
Because at the moment we're seeing it as a grid, and it would be stupid now to shift from that.
So here's something exciting then. So Dan, you need to pop all of the art over to Chris.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll focus with the map as it is, numbered wise, just so it just turns to numbers, and I can just send Chris the images as I have them numbered, so Chris knows, okay, that just slots into there, done.
Perfect. So there's that. Sam, you need to send all the audio over to Chris. And Chris, you just need to put it all together.
Oh Christ! Like a Minecrafter.
Now here's absolutely.
Put each brick down by hand.
Now here's the thing. You know what you're doing, Dan. Sam, you know what you're doing. Chris, you know what you're doing. What am I doing? Obviously, I'll go and get the rest of this.
You're getting the rest of the audio, and then you're focusing on the PR and the marketing of what we're going to do with it. Once we have this, what are we doing with it?
Yeah.
You sound so excited about that.
No, it's fine. No, it'll be good.
Yeah, so I can put 25 rooms down on paper before Sam gives me the sounds or anything. I just need to kind of know where I'm putting the doors and which ones I stay locked.
Well, you've got so Dan's got the map and he'll send it to you.
Yeah. because the pictures are fine. I'm right in saying I'm not putting text on this anymore because we've got the voice acting. I don't need to have the old man speak and have his text there.
I do think we need some text in terms of a title and
so
gameplay instructions.
I'll teach myself how to do that then. Okay.
So Dan can include text on an image that starts.
Yeah.
I could
Dan
give you
can
an
make
image.
a title board that just says.
Yeah, Dan, can you do that for me, please?
Just in time for Christmas. This is a game designed by blah 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 to play.
If you wanna,
you're always facing.
Yeah. And if you want to add a question mark, Dan, no pressure.
Just in time for Christmas.
I love the idea of us calling this just in time for Christmas.
All right. Okay. Righto. Brilliant. Well, making a game is as easy as that. So if you want to do it yourself, then go ahead. All the advice so far from our wizened mouths is available on past shows from retrospectpodcast.com. Subscribe if you like it. Review it. We do some stuff on YouTube occasionally. Twitter, we're on there. At InRetroSpect. We all have our own personal accounts. All the information is at InRetroSpect. Next month, we did mention this briefly, we'll be playing the game superhatgame.com, where you can play the prototype. Please do play it with us. It's a bit like Quantum Break, but for free, as it's just a prototype. It's just the prototype.
It's just a prototype.
You can get
Is it a prototype?
Kickstarter. It's a prototype. You can get on board with Kickstarter. Deals start at $14.
Whoa.
So, brilliant. That's that then. We'll be back next month where we'll be playing a free game. We'll be having more gaming news. Maybe we'll have another each of the month.
Nice.
But who knows? Anyway, my name's Sam Turner. I'm going to say goodbye. Peter Whittington, the professor, is going to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
The Doctor of Dance, Chris Darby, is going to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And the Master of Music, Daniel Frost, is going to say goodbye as well.
Goodbye.
All right then. Cheerio, you.